Nestled below the San Francisco Peaks in northern Arizona is one of my favorite places to visit, Wupatki National Monument. Now, after arriving at the visitor center, make sure you get your passport stamped. Every national monument and park has one. You can put it in your passport book and then you can go ahead and explore the ruins. Now, I'm going to take you on a tour here of the Wupatki ruins, which stands for the Big House. Now, a couple interesting things about the Big House. It was actually found in a dilapidated or ruined foundation and then rebuilt into what they thought it looked like. The first two park rangers in the late 1930s up until about 1942 actually lived inside the ruins with their Navajo compatriots here in this beautiful area. And then it was later deconstructed into what they originally found, because one of the challenges of archaeology here on the Colorado Plateau is that we really don't know what these ruins look like. We have an idea, but rather than guessing and perpetuating misbelief of what these structures look like, we'd rather have them in their incomplete state. Now, here is Wupatki. Now, it began as a family residence sometime around 1100, and we're not really sure if it stems from the Sinaguan people or from a descendant of the Cayentas, which were part Navajo. What we do know is that this, as I said, started out as a family residence and grew to a 100-room complex here that's very indicative of pueblo-style housing here on the Colorado Plateau. Now, there are ceremonial kivas and ball courts here, but they are a little bit different than what you would see, say, up at Mesa Verde or down south in Mexico. Now, the Colorado Plateau is a very windy place. Now, as I said, this was a farming community, so it may seem odd that you would find, well, a lot of people farming out here in such a dry, arid climate, especially in the summertime. But adjacent to Wupatki is Sunset Crater National Monument, and in about 1040 to 1110, that volcano erupted. And when it set out its cinders and ensuing ash, it actually trapped a lot of moisture in the sand, which made this a very fertile place to farm. At its largest, Wupatki stood 3 stories tall and focused around this little outcropping here. It's a huge sandstone boulder that the masons of the time used the naturally fractured rocks to create extra bricks and then build this enormous home. Now, behind me you can see, probably in this area here, a large iron plate and beam. These were installed in the 1930s to stabilize the ruins. Now, the National Park Service tries not to recreate or reinvent these structures. What they do is what's called stabilization to prevent further deterioration. Now, a lot of these monuments have new mortar in them, but the sandstone is original. The beams are original. This is what makes seeing Native American pueblo and cliff dwellings so amazing, is that most of the structure, roughly between 75 and 85%, is still original, meaning that they have stood the test of time for over 800 years using nothing more than mud and stone out in the open. Now, probably one of the coolest things here at Wupatki is the Blowhole. Now, I have been here numerous times. I went to university here. But the thing that stuck in my mind was a childhood trip to Wupatki. Now, beneath this grate, is an expansive cavern. Now, on days like today when it's cool, cold air rushes into the cavern due to a differential in pressure. Now, on warmer days or in the summer, that cool air blows up, thus giving it the name the Blowhole. And as you can tell, there's an enormous amount of force that comes with that air. So it's very common to see kids, college students, and yours truly stand over the blowhole and hold their shirts open or their jackets open. The rushing air will actually fill it up so you can do your best impression of He-Man. Now I'm standing here in the ball court of Wupatki. Now, if you're familiar with ball courts down in Mexico, they're lavish multi-level structures that are used to play a game similar to soccer or field hockey or something along those lines. What makes the ball court here at Wupatki unique is that it was actually constructed out of an excavated pit and then filled with the sandstone bricks around the perimeter. The other thing that's unique is that it's believed that those who settled here in Wupatki may have come from the Colorado Plateau area near Mesa Verde, the ancestral Puebloan people, or what was used to be referred to as the Anasazi people. The ball court here actually seems to indicate that this may have been a midway juncture trade point between the people in southern Arizona and here as well. Now in southern Arizona, such as the Hohokam region or Pima region, you do see ball courts, and they do have more of a Latin American flair, South American flair, which seems to indicate that this may have been someplace that the two cultures combined, connected, and traded goods. Now we're here at the main kiva at Wupatki. This is a very interesting structure. Those familiar with kivas may have seen them up north on the Colorado Plateau at, say, Mesa Verde. Now they're large ceremonial structures where elders and spiritual leaders would go to have special ceremonies. They're usually sunken below the ground and covered with some kind of roof. Usually it's flat. Now here at Wupatki, it's a little bit different. It's not a sunken structure, but one encompassed right at ground level. Furthermore, archaeological evidence seems to indicate that there was no roof, meaning that this was an open air structure. We really don't know why this is the case, but certainly is one of the more interesting aspects of what makes Wupatki different than anything else here on the Colorado Plateau. Now this is probably one of the most interesting rooms here at Wupatki. It's one you can actually walk into, and it was formed because on this wall you can actually see a ready-made wall in place. It's a huge outcropping of sandstone. Now what archaeological evidence has found is that the first 5 feet of this was actually a trash heap. So I'm actually standing on ancient trash that has been excavated. And then they put a floor over it. Now what you can see if you follow me around here is that this wall right here starts the second floor. And it goes up and you can see the window into that room. Now coming back onto me, you can see the third floor way up here and the wall up there as it goes into it. If you come over here, at the top of the wall, you can actually see the holes that were used for wooden support beams that supported that third story. As I mentioned, Wupatki had at one time 100 different rooms and 3 stories in this massive tower. Now, if you remember at the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned that the first 2 park rangers actually lived in the ruins. Now, behind me are the areas that the park rangers lived in. Now, they had to use a ladder to get up to these rooms, And they had the luxury of cooking with propane and the privilege of hauling their own water. Now, economic times back then were also tough, so the government charged the rangers $10 a month to live in these ruins. Now, this is actually pretty cool. Now, behind me right here is an original beam of Wupatki. It dates back about 800 years. Now, as you can see, it's actually splintered and broken. Now, the story behind this is actually kind of cool because I was here back in 2005 with my cousin and I took a picture. Now, if you've seen some of my artwork, you've seen a picture possibly entitled Support. Now, that picture is of this beam and it's intact, meaning that in the last 2.5 years, the exposure to the weather here has dried it and fractured it. All right, the last thing I want to show you here at Wupatki is actually something kind of cool. Now, in these rooms, they are normally stacked one above each other, but to stay warm you had to have a fire, and that created a problem as ventilation was coming in from the outside. Now, behind me is a unique invention to the people of these times. You can see the fire pit, but you can also see a barricade that was used to deflect the wind around the incoming airflow so it would not disrupt the burning fire. I've hoped you enjoyed this tour of Wupatki and the sites of Wupatki National Monument. It's located just outside of Flagstaff. It's a fantastic place. I hope you come and visit. We'll see you later. Have a great one.